I've spent my last 25 years in public service of one kind or another. At the end of another term, I'd be in my mid-80s. Frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. They're the ones that need to make the decisions that will shape the world they will be living in.
Today, that man, Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney, announced he would not run for re-election and would step down when his term expires in January 2025. And thus will end the political career of a man who has, to my mind, improbably become one of the most fascinating political figures of our times. Romney is in the twilight, as you said, of his political career, and he staked out a non-MAGA Republican position after he was elected in 2018, spending his Senate term as basically a normal, conscientious, non-Trump conservative. That itself undersells just how freakishly rare such a stance was. He was basically the only one. And now he's taking no prisoners on his way out by way of a forthcoming tell-all biography written by McKay Coppins, who was given extraordinary access to the senator and his files, including journals and diaries. Excerpts were published from that book today in The Atlantic, and in them, Romney recounts several stories, including during the investigation that led to Donald Trump's first impeachment, when then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell reportedly told Trump to stop attacking Romney on Twitter. Quote, Romney thanked McConnell for sticking up for him against Trump. You're lucky, McConnell continued. You can say the things we all think. You're in a position to say things about him we all agree with, but can't say. Tim Miller is a former spokesman for the RNC and former communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign. He's now a writer at large for The Bulwark, where he wrote today about Romney's announcement. You're shaking your head because it's like what I found. This, by the way, the excerpt's amazing. I think the book's going to be phenomenal. What I found fascinating about it, again, it was a little like when Jack Smith charged Trump. Just the I'm not crazy. Obviously, the people up close to Donald Trump look at the guy and think, this guy should not be president. Of course he shouldn't be president. And Mitt Romney just saying, yes, behind closed doors, that's what they all say, was not surprising, but there was something like water is wet, 2 + 2 = 4 about it for me.
For sure. At first, I just have to say, it just caught me off guard when I heard him say that he'd be in his mid-80s again. I mean, the milk, there's something about the milk diet, because Romney looks great.
He sure does. He's got some picture of himself in an attic.
I was shaking my head after there was Mitch McConnell saying, you're saying the things that we can't say. But that's wrong, right? Mitt is saying the things that they won't say, that they're unwilling to say. And not really very many people tried to say them and survive. I always said to Republican politicians that still called me, that's a dwindling number, but the ones who did, I was like, you don't have to be me. You don't have to go on Chris Hayes and just troll Trump at every possible opportunity, but you just have to do the right things at the right times, right? You have to convict him when he tries a coup, right? You have to speak out when, he's saying that we should send American black women back where they came from, right? That's all. That was the minimum bar we were asking for, and for some reason, Mitt Romney was the only one that stood over it, and so that's why I think it's sad that he's leaving for that reason.
That's the other thing about Romney that I find fascinating. Again, every time that he would talk about things in the parameters of normal politics, almost not every time, but often I'd be like, no, you're wrong, dude. I wouldn't like them. The things he said about the deficit, about the child tax cut, about abortion. I disagree with him, but it was you are recognizably, in a small d sense, a Democrat, meaning committed to the project of American democracy. You're on the same team of we want this thing to continue, and not feeling like you have that faith in other members of the party is what's so scary about these times to me.
Yeah, and the turnover, right? The more these people leave, they're going to be replaced by uglier and uglier folks. Just in Utah, there was actually a House primary that didn't get a lot of attention, where there was one kind of Romney-ish, maybe even a little more moderate, frankly, candidate. And it was a three-way race that she almost kind of luckily snuck through just because of the nature of the primary. But she did, and you end up with a super MAGA. That is what is going to happen again. And so, Romney, and I think even viewers who are very progressive, very liberal, the other thing that Romney did when he got in there is he was serious about governing. And he was serious about small d democracy. He was serious about governing. He did work with Joe Biden and with Democrats on, maybe not the child tax credit. I'm with you. He probably should have, but on infrastructure, on chips, on the gun reform bill, on the Electoral Count Act. right? Like this is like again what should be the minimum of what we want from our legislators, but there are just so few of them left.
He's also a contrast to another person, I think, who sort of holds himself out in similar fashion, I think, to Mitt Romney in some ways, as a man of integrity, of a man of devout belief, which is Mike Pence. Romney says this about Pence in the book and in the excerpt. He'd long been put off by Pence's pious brand of Trump sycophancy. No one, he told me, had been more loyal, more willing to smile when he saw absurdities, more willing to ascribe God's will to things that were ungodly than Mike Pence, which is a pretty good turn of phrase. And here's what it got Mike Pence. Take a look at Mike Pence on the campaign trail today. I think this is in Iowa, in Decorah. Take a look.
Mike Pence, nobody wants Christian fascist bullshit anymore. Leave and get the out of our country and get the out of Iowa.
I'm going to put him down as a maybe.
Mike Pence, who is sort of despised across the political spectrum and has the lowest favorabilities. It's a pretty good line there. But Pence and Romney are a really fascinating contrast because they do have some root in some thing that we used to see as kind of religiously imbued conservatism.
Yeah, and I think the contrast is in two ways, right? I thought that Mitt put it better than I could of all the reasons why Mike Pence doesn't deserve the credit that he does, despite doing the right thing on one day, just because of the level of sycophancy. But the other interesting thing, I think, in Mitt's comments in The Atlantic and in that video, he still is saying that Mitt Romney, believes in these more traditional conservative values, these old classically small liberal values. But he's also saying he thinks that a big part of the Republican Party is actively hostile to them and anti-Constitution, whereas Mike Pence is still out there kind of saying we can still fight for this. And I think that's another just reality check difference that Mitt's on the right side of.
Yeah. Tim Miller, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the Chris Hayes Show. We always like that.